Most AI demos on YouTube are just that, demos. Real AI projects get messy. So in this video, I'll break down a real case study from my agency with Gemstone Auctions. I'll show the 3 solutions we built and how it impacted their business, show you a real customer journey from acquisition to sales to fulfillment, show you all the mistakes we made and the challenges we faced and how we fixed them to eventually get a long-term partnership deal, and lastly, show you an interview with Ross, the business owner himself. If you're an agency owner or a business owner, this video will hopefully show you how real-world AI implementation actually unfolds. If you don't know me yet, I'm Ben. I run a custom AI agency. I also sell AI marketing and recruiting systems, and I also run a community where I try to help developers, professionals, and business owners start and grow their own AI business. First, I'll cover the solutions we delivered to this company and what the impact was of those solutions. Then I'll break down the customer journey from acquisition to sales to project fulfillment. This was one of our earlier clients. We made a lot of mistakes during this fulfillment, so I'll show you how we fixed them and ultimately set up a long-term AI partnership. And lastly, I'll show you a quick interview with Ross, the COO of this company, to get some insights from the business owner himself. So first of all, big shout out to Ross for allowing us to do this video and to talk so transparently about his case. I think it's going to help a lot of people. So Ross, you're amazing. We appreciate you a lot. So for context, Ross is the COO of multiple companies, including Gemrock, Opal, which are basically gemstone marketplaces. So as you can see, they have many different stones, right? For example, here, diamonds. And basically, this marketplace allows people to either buy or sell high quality gemstones in a safe way. And they also do auctions with these gemstones. So the main challenges for this company when they reached out were they had a team of gemstone sheriffs manually auditing all of the new listings that are posted on their platform. They'd have to check the images, the descriptions, and the certifications of the gemstones. And as you can imagine, this is a very tedious job that actually does need some expertise. And with thousands of listings, in practice, only 1% of listings were actually audited. Basically, only when a potential buyer requested an audit. Also, their customer support was pretty overwhelmed with repetitive questions, and many sellers, when uploading a new product, weren't always consistent or comprehensive enough. So when we started, we built 3 main solutions. First, the audit sheriff automation, which basically automatically checks and audits listings. It checks the certificate documents for the gemstones. It analyzes the images and the text in the listings to let the auditors basically save a lot of time. Right? You can see the N8N screenshot here. It's quite a straightforward automation. We have the text agent validator here and the image validator here, which then gets sent over to an AI agent to give an AI audit summary. But you can imagine it made a big impact on this business. Ross said it himself, right? It used to be 80% of the gemstone sheriff's work, and now it's 20%, right? It can read the certificates in the image, and the team was like, this is unbelievable. Then second, we also built a customer support website chatbot with RAG, with product and business knowledge. The agent has also access to a tool to the entire inventory, so the bot can recommend specific listings or gemstones to the clients. This one was deployed across multiple of their marketplaces. It also had a Slack integration, so the team can easily track new potential customers. This again saved a lot of time for the team. There was faster client support, and according to Ross, customers love it. Then on top of that, we also built a sentiment analysis agent that automated the sentiment scoring of every one of these chatbot conversations. So it basically flags low-rated sentiments in Airtable and suggests fixes, so the team knows which documentation and product listings should be improved fast to get better outcomes to their customers. Again, according to Ross, this sentiment analysis made their average star rating go up to 4.2. And after these initial projects, which were not without problems or mistakes, which I'll get to in a second, we got into a long-term AI partnership with this company, and we have now at least 5 more automations we're building out, but most likely many, many more. So now I just want to give you a realistic breakdown of this specific customer journey from acquisition to sales to project fulfillment, the mistakes we made and how we fixed them to eventually get on a long-term partnership with this client on a 5,000 euro retainer. So first on acquisition, maybe not surprising to some of you, but Ross found me on YouTube. As Ross said, I built some things for myself after watching your videos and then reached out to you guys to move it forward because you guys are the experts. And this is just another testament that AI content really does drive leads, even completely unrelated solution demos, because nothing of what I've shown is actually related to Ross's use cases. And second, even tutorial type videos do attract business owners because many business owners have that same attitude as Ross, right? They want to learn some and do some things themselves before hiring or giving it away to someone else. So from there, Ross booked in a sales call. Now, we generally try to keep the sales process as short as possible. In AI automation, this can drag out over weeks when you're trying to scope out everything. But in our experience, the shorter the sales cycle, the better. So we generally try to get the sales process in maximum 2 calls. In the first call, we really only have 3 goals, right? The first goal is to, of course, build a relationship with the client. Second is qualifying the lead. And third is identifying a first use case, ideally a high ROI and easy to implement use case. Now, for the qualification, the main criteria we look for are, first of all, the company size, which we actually do pre-call. Now, Ross's company is a very solid business and one we could definitely work with. Second is, how bullish are they on AI? Now, there are two ends of the spectrum here. If they're extremely skeptical, we generally see this is going to be a difficult company to work with. But also sometimes we see companies on the other side of the spectrum thinking that AI can automate their entire business with one AI agent, which is generally also a red flag for us. So we generally call those guys the silver bullet seekers. So we're sort of looking for companies that are convinced AI can make a difference in their business and have at least some realistic understanding about what it could do for their business. Then, of course, we have to be aligned on the budget, and you can be quite direct here too and just ask a company straight out, how much would you expect this to cost? You don't have to pitch prices yet. You just want to sort of get a feel for clients' expectations to make sure they're qualified. For example, if they have a huge project in mind and expect it to cost $1,000, it probably tells you enough. And lastly, in this conversation, you really want to try to talk about their business problems, see if they have any initial ideas for automation projects, and try to identify one high ROI but easy to implement use case to start with. The goal in this first call is not to scope out or sell any solution just yet. You're really just building the relationship, qualifying the lead, and identifying one ideally small use case. Now, in this case, Ross had a very clear idea on high ROI solutions, which was, of course, the listing verification, customer support agent, and a customer sentiment agent. And clearly, Ross was very invested in AI and its potential impact. Now, one more thing I want to add here is that you generally want to pitch the partnership or retainer model on the first call right away. Of course, you're going to do a paid project first and show them one solution. So you build trust with the client, you show the ROI of your solutions and show that you can actually deliver. But if you wanted this to become a potential long-term partnership, it is important to clarify in the first call that you are only interested in working with businesses over the long term, because we know that 1 or 2 projects can be good, but to make a real impact in your business, we need to work long term as your AI partner. And we generally really say that from the start, which is, by the way, also a great qualification criteria, because if they're just shopping around to get the cheapest implementation for one specific solution they have in mind, it might not be a client you actually want to work with. I also have a full video where I break down in more detail how we do our sales process. So if you're interested, make sure to check it out. I'll link it up here too. Now, in the second call, which we call the strategy call, which was 5 days later, we really tried to narrow down into the specific project or solution that we identified in the first call in order to judge the feasibility and in order to set up a proposal. Now, in order to do that, we really need to do some initial scoping in this call. And generally, what we try to do is get all the necessary information to judge the feasibility and to have an estimation on how much time it takes to deliver this, to set up the proposal. Now, really important here, we're only getting the necessary information to judge the feasibility and have an estimated time frame. We don't scope out the entire project and all the details before sending a proposal. This is also a big mistake we made early on, because this can drag out the sales process for weeks or months, right? Leading to lots of unpaid work and a lot of times leads to a deal that just doesn't go through. So these are generally the 5 points we're trying to figure out in this strategy call. Is, first of all, we want to be very clear on the problem we're trying to solve and the process we're going to automate. Then we want to clearly define with the client what the outcome should look like and what the success metrics are that are attached to it. Then we want to know when it should be triggered and what data we have access to. And we want to know the software stack also, so we know that these softwares actually have API integrations and if this is actually feasible. And then lastly, we want to be clear on the volume of operations required for this automation and the budget to run that to make sure that the ROI makes sense. Now, with these points, you generally have enough information to design an initial proposal and have an initial time frame. Now, another thing I would want to add here is that if the client has a really big project in mind, don't attack or try to scope out the entire huge project right away. Try to break that large project down into the smallest part that still delivers value to the client and only start with that. Your goal, again, is to get the quickest win possible to your client. We don't want to have our first project drag out over months before our client sees anything. And this is another mistake we made with this client. Instead of starting with one small MVP solution, we started with 3 projects right away. Again, I also have a full scoping guide on my YouTube channel. So if you want to learn more about how we scope projects, you can also check that out on my YouTube channel. Now, with that initial information, we can start estimating how much time it would take us, and then we can price the project and set up a proposal. Now, if you want the proposal template that we use in our agency, you can also check out my community, where I also give away all the other documents like PRD and SOW. In terms of pricing, I see a lot of people on the internet talking about pricing based on ROI. Now, we've tried a lot of different things in pricing, and although pricing based on ROI sounds amazing and can sometimes work when you have more productized solutions or solutions that deliver a very clear ROI. But in our experience, the majority of these custom projects, this is pretty unrealistic to do, right? For example, for these 2 projects, it wouldn't be very straightforward to calculate an ROI on these solutions, right? The customer hasn't even seen the results it could bring. So you sitting in these sales calls, trying to break down their business, trying to guess the ROI, or figuring out how much time an employee would save and how much that employee would cost, it's just not very straightforward. And in our experience, it doesn't work out great for many of these custom projects. And besides that, for especially these initial projects, they're much more focused on building trust and showing some ROI to the client in order for you to establish that long-term partnership, which is actually what allows you to get consistent and reliable income. So it's not necessarily about really trying to cash in big on this first project. And this is why charging them here for 2 or 3 separate projects right away was a mistake. We should have quoted them for only one. Also, to make the initial risk for the client as low as possible, because again, we just want to show them a win as soon as possible to get them invested in building more and potentially to get on a long-term partnership. Now, the way we price for these custom projects is pretty simple. We estimate the time it requires. We put an hourly price on it with a margin, of course, of 30 to 40%. And then we add 50% on top of that, because anyone who knows and who has done any of these projects knows that processes always take longer than expected. Now, we sent this proposal to Ross. We use PandaDoc to get the signature and the payment for the customer in this same proposal, and Ross paid a few days later. So then we get to project fulfillment. Now, there were 3 main challenges we faced with these clients, which I think are very common challenges for AI agencies. And I'll show you the mistakes we made and how we fixed them. So the first one is scoping. Our original plan was to deliver all of these 3 solutions in 30 days. It actually took us 45 plus days because there were some client-side delays. We were waiting for some credentials, some internal approvals. We needed to wait for feedback when testing. There were also delays on our side when an engineer went on sick leave. We had scope discussions internally. And this is really important to get right, because this, of course, can really lead to client expectation mismanagement, trust issues, and a lot of times for you can lead to underpriced projects. So that's why the lesson here is to always add that 50% of time delay to a projected plan. Even if you think you can do it in 30 days, add some slack for yourself, because it's far better to promise and over deliver, right? You can better promise that it's ready in 45 days and actually be ready in 30 days than the other way around. Now, the second big mistake here was, of course, to not start with these 3 automations in parallel, but just start with one. Now, another very common problem that arises with these initial projects is misaligned expectations, right? And a huge difference for us has been adding an SOW, or a scope of work document, along with our proposals. So the SOW basically aligns and defines very clearly what's covered by the project and what's not. So as you can see here, we have the scope definition, but maybe more importantly, the scope exclusions, what's not involved. If you want our SOW template and example, you can again check out the community in the description below. Now, another challenge we faced initially with this client was client communication. This is before we worked with delivery managers. Now, our engineers were talking directly to this client through Slack. There was no task management system, and again, no SOW, which all led to pretty chaotic and sporadic client communication, no task management, stressful delivery, and of course, a little bit of a lack of professionalism towards the client. As Ross said in one call, the engineer had kids home sick, the house was flooded, and the plumber was coming at 6 a.m. And he said, I'll try to fix that one thing too, which just didn't come across very professional. We later introduced a delivery manager with Ross and this company. We added in SOWs and weekly updates, and as Ross said, it worked far better. It's better because engineers are then free to focus on actual building. The client has a single point of contact. The client gets weekly email updates in a structured way. They get structured documents and a consistent and professional client communication, which is arguably the most important aspect in the entire project fulfillment process. So when you're growing your AI agency and starting to work with bigger clients, having a project manager or delivery manager layer really becomes a non-negotiable, right? And having structured weekly project updates can really build trust with clients. You don't want to disappear and come back in a few weeks with a finished solution. You want to keep them up to date and let them know that you're on top of it. Now, lastly, there were also some technical challenges when implementing these solutions for the client. We had some issues with the certificate validation. When we put it in production, it flagged everything as needing certificates. There were some chatbot hallucinations as the chatbot was inventing URLs. So we had to adjust the prompting and put some more guardrails on the system. We had some API limitations with Airtable when running high volume operations. And this is really just the reality of putting these systems into production. This is completely normal and is almost always going to happen. Most edge cases only pop up and appear when it's actually in production. So this is perfectly fine, but it has to be planned into the timeline. And another big lesson we learned is that instead of presenting it as a finished product, you want to communicate to the client that the first 2 weeks of putting this in production is a testing phase. You make clear that this will run into issues and that it is completely normal in order to manage client expectations. Because of course, if you promise a finished solution and then it runs into all kinds of issues, the client trust will go down a lot. So instead of that, you want to communicate clearly that this is not going to work perfectly yet, and we're going to fix everything in the upcoming 2 weeks. Now, besides all of the challenges, these solutions did really make a big impact on this company. As said before, only 1% of listings were audited before, but now more than 6,500 listings were automatically audited. They lost sales because of slow customer response times, and now they have 300 daily chats automated with instant and consistent support and even product recommendations. Ross also mentioned that his team is a lot happier now that they have these AI tools and a lot more efficient. And also customers love it. So his team can now really focus on higher leverage activities instead of doing repetitive sort of admin work. Now, Ross also was pretty well educated on AI and automation already, thought these solutions were possible, but even with that education, he was still blown away with the results of these solutions. And while working with Ross and his business, hundreds of new ideas and upgrades to these solutions we implemented came up. And that's what we see really consistently happen, right? One project usually leads to tens or even hundreds of ideas and opportunities. And therefore, it's such a good roadmap, I think, to become a long-term AI partner, right? That's what we really see more and more. A great roadmap is start with one small project that delivers some ROI. You build trust with the client, you show them the ROI, then the client really learns about all the possibilities of AI, discovers tens or hundreds of new opportunities together with you, and then you can establish that long-term partnership model and get a retainer with the client. Now, some clients might not have a specific project in mind at the beginning. That's where you can, instead of a one paid project model, you can do a paid audit to identify where they should start and deliver one project in there, and then eventually switch over. But many businesses, in our experience, have things in mind to be solved right away. Because now we have at least 5 or 6 new projects in the pipeline with Ross. We'll do a meta ad campaign automation. He also wants to do a voice agent, which is basically an upgrade of the chatbot we made, which is again why it's so important to start small with these automation solutions, because a lot of future projects will build on top of these initial solutions. Then we have also some other ones like seller verification, fraud detection, dynamic pricing, and SEO and content system. Anyway, let me now switch to the interview with Ross to get some insights from a business owner himself, because I think Ross has some really interesting insights to share with us for both AI agency owners and business owners looking to adopt AI. So first of all, thank you so much for doing this, Ross. There are not a lot of companies that are willing to do this so openly. So I really appreciate you allowing us to showcase your project so transparently.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to get into this.
I'd love to first learn a little bit, how did you find out about AI automation and what led you to book a call with us specifically?
Yeah, I think the journey began. There was just so much information out there. There was all these new tools. There was all these new models coming out. It was so hard to keep up with what was actually happening. And then I found your videos. And I think the thing that I liked about your videos was that you were, for a business owner, I always like to do first and then get someone else to do it. So I want to know and I want to understand what the workflow is, how hard it is, what's involved. So watching all your videos, I think you started with Make and I built some things in Make. I really, really liked Make. And then you moved over to N8N and I can't say I like N8N very much, but but you guys are great at it. So yeah, that's kind of how it started. I found you and I was watching all of your videos, built some stuff myself, and then yeah, reached out to you guys and said, man, I want to expand on what I'm doing, and you guys are the experts, so let's keep moving it forward.
And what was your experience then during the sales process? What did you like and what didn't you like?
Yeah, I think the very first onboarding call was super easy, and we were just, I think everyone was so excited. We're like, well, and I had my ideas that I was like, I want AI to do, like our gemstone sheriff. I want some customer support, and you guys were like, well, you can do this. And we've got clients that are talking about doing this. There was just, it was an hour went by like that, and then we kind of got off the call, and then I had to really think about what I wanted to implement, the first thing that I wanted to implement in the business. And so, yeah, after that first call, the second call was much more mellow, focused. All right, this is what we're going to look into, and then we kind of went from there.
In terms of what you expected AI automation or these projects to do for your business versus what it actually delivered at the end, did that match up or was it actually a
I
little bit
I would
different?
say on the what we've done 3 projects now, I think they all exceed what I thought they were going to be. Like
Interesting.
they're much more robust than I thought they were gonna be. I think the guide rails that you guys build into all your systems, the robustness is much more than I was expecting.
How much of an impact does it make on your business in general and on your team?
We're a marketplace where third-party sellers list individual items, gemstones for sale, and previously, humans would sit there and check whether, the weight that's in the title matches the weight that they put in the description box. And, those sorts of things are really tedious for humans to do. We're talking about thousands of items, right? So now AI comes in and we call our AI Gemma, by the way. We just call her Gemma. She's amazing. She just comes in and she looks at everything. She goes, well, all of the information is consistent. All of the information abides by our listing guide that Gemma's collected from all of our documentation. And now she can just say, yes, as far as I can tell, this listing meets all of the criteria. Now, as a gemologist, is this really the thing that they're trying to sell? And for the gemstone sheriffs, they can go, well, sure, I'll still check those things, but it used to be 80% of the work, and now it's 20% of the work.
Percent.
And then they can do lots more of this gemology stuff, and it's much more accurate. And yeah, I think it's and the workforce, like everyone's happier. Everyone's so much happier because they get to do the stuff that they actually really want to do.
Basically, out of that, you requested sort of 5 more almost
Mhm.
immediately and got into more of a long-term partnership with us.
Yep.
What triggered those new ideas and made you sort of decide to make this sort of a long-term partnership?
Yeah, I think the first project that we did was the gemstone sheriff, which isn't it's not customer facing. So, that's all back end. Like a customer requests something, it does its magic and then works with the gemstone sheriff so they still do the review. So there wasn't too much of a risk customer facing with putting AI in there. And then the second project that we did was create Gemma, and she's the customer support. She does everything. Customer support. She's a shopping helper. She can go find you gemstones. She can tell you all about every gemstone you've ever thought about. And that was our first customer facing project that we worked on. And I've got to say the way that people use Gemma is we could never imagine it would be that good.
Amazing.
Like,
Yeah.
honestly. So then going back to your question, why did we decide to do 5 more projects? Because we saw the way that customers were interacting with Gemma. So, there was the back end sheriff, and that improved productivity, made the team happier. And then we had customer facing project, and that now answers people 24 hours a day. People interact with her. They like interacting with her. So for us as a business, like it's a no-brainer. People are happier, people are more efficient, customers love her. So why wouldn't we want to just keep building on top of her and do all these different projects that we're thinking about?
If like there are many businesses out there who are sort of thinking about adopting AI automation, they might not know where to start, if they should
Mm.
start, if it's not too early, if these things actually work. What would you tell another CEO of a business that's thinking of working with an AI agency?
Yeah, I think the beauty of AI is if you can focus on things in your business that are repetitive, that take, lots of concentration and lots of manual things to do. AI is a really good, not replacement. AI is a really good tool to help sit next to a human to help them do their job better. So, if you've got something that is tedious, that's repetitive, invest in using AI so that person, like, that human is happier they're more productive, they like their job more because it's, it's gotten slightly easier. But so yeah, I think there's no reason why every business shouldn't be looking into AI at the moment. And one of the big things that I was worried about in the beginning when I was talking about the journey of discovering you guys was there's so many models. And then, ChatGPT goes from 3 to 4 to 5, and then Gemini comes along, and then Grok comes out of nowhere. And it was like, wow, I originally was like, I don't want to invest in AI because if I just go and build this thing in GPT-3, next month it's going to come out as GPT-5 and I'm going to be obsolete. But, you educated me with the way that N8N and a lot of these, Make and N8N platforms work. When you put the AI brain in there, you can just swap that out. And, you can run tests. So you could say, oh, maybe I want to see if Gemini is working better than ChatGPT. And you can just swap it out, run some simulations and have a look how it performs and make a decision just like that. So it's like the actual thing that you're building, these flows, they're kind of a fundamental base, right? And then you can just swap in all the different AI models. And yeah, so there's no risk to the investment.
Exactly, and they get actually better when these new models come out because we can switch it out for the newest model, and the
Yeah.
entire solution will improve.
Yeah.
Exactly. You've been very positive, but the process hasn't been flawless either, right? So in the general process of working with us, what were some things you didn't like, or some mistakes we made that we could have improved?
Yeah, I think, like I said, originally everyone was just so excited, right? Like everyone just wanted to build stuff and go fast. And I had a direct Slack line straight to the engineers that were coding. So, you know, something had happened, something had break, and I'd message them, and then we were just building these things. They're going really, really fast, and we built a lot of stuff really quickly. Um, but then, we kind of stopped and we're like, well, like, what have we built? Where's the documentation around it? I guess maybe you guys were a bit lucky with me because I had that experience of trying to build these things up front first. So I knew how N8M worked and I knew how Airtable worked. I knew how all these things work. So I could get in there and do a bit of debugging as well and send it to the engineers. But I could imagine that if I was just a business owner that had no idea and they've just gone out and said, right, like this, I know I need to get AI. You go and build it for me. Maybe they could have been a little bit disappointed in the lack of guide rails, the lack of direction, and lack of scope, definitely.
Yes, 100%. And that's what I was gonna say, Ross, because you're pretty unique in that position. Like that could actually work out. But in general, when you're taking bigger projects and working with bigger clients, you really need the delivery manager in between
Mhm.
the client and the engineers, because otherwise it becomes very chaotic, a little bit
Yeah.
unprofessional, right, towards the client. And what was the difference in experience for you when having a delivery manager who's basically
Oh,
your
yeah.
point of contact? How's that changed the sort of communication and
Yeah, well, there's the communication, there's the project tracking, there's, um, you know, the guide rails, everything that if something breaks or something needs to be changed, straight to the project manager, and then that gets divvied out to the engineers. I still have direct line to the engineers in case they need to ask me any questions. But yeah, it's much more controlled. Everyone knows exactly what they're working on. Um, Communication wise, I've got the weekly updates that come in email, and and the calls that we have. We define projects into the SOWs, so everyone, the scope of works, everyone knows exactly what they're going to be working on. And obviously, you guys are giving a little bit of extra budget on top of that SOW just in case something happens. And I think that's a much better way because the way that it was before, I'm sure I used more hours than what was quoted for. Just because so much was going backwards and forwards. But and I think that's a learning curve
yeah.
for everyone.
Yes, the SOW is a big one, right? Also for you to know what's actually being done and to be
Mhm.
clear on what what the scope of this project actually involves, right? And what you can expect at the end, because that's also where a lot of times things go wrong, right? Because the client has a different expectation than the engineering team or the project manager. Thank you so much, Ross, for doing this. And I was talking to Owen. We're gonna send you. I don't know if you already received the strobe waffles.
Oh, did you?
We're gonna send them.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love those. I only discovered them like 3 months ago. I was like, "What are these?" It's the best kept secret.
All right, they're the best. And my
Oh,
tip
they're
is
the
put
best.
them in the microwave for 20 seconds,
Oh,
right?
yeah?
So the caramel gets heated up a bit, and then they're even better.
The lady who I bought them off said, "Put them on top of your hot cup of tea.
Uh,
Melts the caramel." Oh, it's so good. Thank you so much.
Now, if you want to watch the full interview with Ross, you can also check my community in the link in the description below. Also remember that all the templates that I showed in this video will also be available in my community. And if you want to learn more about how to do sales for an AI automation project, you can check out the video here.